The Valari were dying. Ambassador Lirin stood in the communications center of Colony Elos 7, her translucent body flickering with fear. Outside the reinforced walls, she could hear the screams. The Krath swarm had come without warning, descending from the sky like a plague of darkness. Their ships blocked the sun. Their soldiers crawled across the land like hungry insects, killing everything they found. The Valari were not fighters. They had never been fighters. Their bodies were made of light and thin membrane, beautiful and fragile like glass sculptures. They floated more than walked. They spoke with their minds more than their voices. On their homeworld, there were no predators, no storms, no violence. They had evolved in peace, and peace was all they knew. Now that peace was ending. Send the signal again, Lirin ordered. Her voice shook, but she forced herself to stay calm. The young ones were watching. They needed to believe someone would come. The communication officer, a young Valari named Torin, pressed his thin fingers against the control panel. The distress signal burst into space once more, traveling faster than light, reaching across the galaxy to anyone who might listen. The Galactic Accord will help us, Torin said. They must help us. Lirin did not answer. She had already received responses from the major species of the Accord. The Morath had calculated the risk and decided it was too great. The Fennec had expressed sadness but explained they could not spare ships. The Yith had offered prayers and sympathy. Nothing more. No one was coming. The Krath were a swarm species. They moved from world to world, consuming everything. They did not negotiate. They did not trade. They only hunted. The Valari had done nothing to attract their attention. They had simply been in the wrong place when the swarm grew hungry. Another explosion shook the building. Dust fell from the ceiling. Somewhere in the distance, Lirin heard a child crying through the telepathic network that connected all Valari. The sound cut through her mind like a knife. How many have we lost? She asked. Torin's glow dimmed with grief. 3 million since yesterday. The eastern settlements are gone. The northern farms are burning. 3 million. Lirin closed her eyes. Elos 7 had been home to 12 million. Valari. At this rate, they would all be dead within a week. The signal continued to broadcast. It was a simple message, translated into every known language in the galaxy. It said, "We are dying. Please help us. We cannot fight. We have no weapons. We have no soldiers. We are only farmers and artists and teachers. Please, anyone, help us." Most species ignored it. Some listened with pity but did nothing. The galaxy was large, and the Valari were small, and the Krath were terrifying. No one wanted to make themselves a target, but the signal did not stop at the borders of civilized space. It traveled further, into a region that most galactic maps marked with warnings. Sector 9. Human territory. On every official star chart, Sector 9 carried the same label. Deathworld origin. Extreme caution advised. Do not approach without authorization. Humans were the only known intelligent species to evolve on a Class 12 death world. Their planet, Earth, was a nightmare of extreme conditions. The gravity was crushing. The atmosphere was filled with a corrosive gas called oxygen. The weather produced storms that could flatten cities. The planet was covered with predators, poisons, and diseases. Earthquakes split the ground. Volcanoes melted the sky. And somehow, impossibly, humans had not only survived there, they had thrived. The galactic community did not understand humans. They were too strong, too fast, too durable. They could survive wounds that would kill any other species. They could eat foods that were toxic to most life forms. They could function in temperatures that would freeze or boil other beings. And most disturbing of all, they had spent most of their history fighting each other. War was a human invention. Other species had conflicts, but nothing like human war. Humans had developed the concept of total war, of genocide, of weapons capable of destroying entire planets. They had nuclear bombs before they had faster-than-light travel. They were, by every measure, the most dangerous species in the known galaxy. Most civilized species avoided them. The distress signal from ELO 7 reached the UEF Indomitable at 0347 hours, ship time. Admiral Kang Tae-ho was in his quarters, reviewing patrol reports, when Commander Park Yu-na contacted him. "Sir, we have received a distress call from the Valari colony on ELO 7. The Krath swarm is attacking. Estimated casualties already in the millions." Tae-ho set down his tablet. He was a tall man, with gray hair and a face that had seen too many battles. He had served in the United Earth Fleet for 32 years. He had fought pirates, rebels, and hostile alien species. He had lost friends, ships, and pieces of himself along the way. But he had never stopped answering calls for help. "The Krath," he said. "How large is their force?" "Initial scans suggest approximately 200 ships and several million ground troops. The Valari have no military capability. They are being slaughtered." End quote. "And the Galactic Accord?" Yuna's voice was flat. "They have declined to intervene." Tae-ho was not surprised. The Accord was good at making speeches and writing treaties. They were less good at actually protecting anyone. "How fast can we mobilize the Third Armada?" 6 hours, sir. "Make it 4. I want every available ship ready to jump." "Full combat readiness." There was a pause. "Sir, the Valari are not allied with Earth. We have no treaty obligations." "I know. The Krath swarm has never been defeated in open combat." "I know that too. May I ask why we are responding?" Admiral Tae-ho stood and walked to his window. Outside, the stars stretched into infinity, cold and silent. Somewhere out there, millions of innocent beings were dying because no one would help them. "Because they asked," he said, "and because we can, that is enough." 4 hours later, 12 warships of the United Earth Fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed, heading toward a world they had never seen, to save a species they had never met. The Deathworlders were coming. Ambassador Liren had given up hope. 5 days had passed since the Krath arrived. 5 days of death and fire and screaming. The surface of ELO 7 was burning. The beautiful crystal cities that the Valari had spent centuries building were now ruins. The farms that had fed millions were ash. The schools, the temples, the gardens where children had played, all gone. The survivors had retreated underground. Nearly 7 million Valari had died. The remaining 5 million huddled in bunkers and tunnels, waiting for the end. Above them, the Krath circled like vultures, patient and hungry. Liren sat in the darkness of the main shelter, surrounded by her people. They looked to her for guidance, but she had none to give. She had sent the distress signal 1,000 times. No one had answered. No one was coming. "We should surrender," said Elder Veth, his light so dim it was almost invisible. "Perhaps they will show mercy." "The Krath do not know mercy," Liren replied. "They will kill us whether we fight or not. At least in hiding, we survive another day. For what purpose? To die tomorrow instead of today?" Liren had no answer. Then the ground shook. At first, she thought it was another Krath attack. But the vibration was different. It came from above, from the sky, from beyond the atmosphere. The telepathic network of the Valari suddenly exploded with voices, confusion, fear, and something else. Something that might have been hope. "Ambassador!" Torin burst into the shelter, his body glowing bright with excitement. "Ships! There are ships in orbit." "More Krath?" "No, unknown design. They are fighting the Krath." Liren rose so quickly she almost fell. She pushed through the crowd and followed Torin to the observation post, a small room with sensors that could see through the rock above them. What she saw made her stop breathing. The sky was at war. 12 ships had appeared from nowhere, emerging from faster-than-light travel directly into the Krath formation. They were not beautiful ships. They were not elegant or graceful like Valari vessels. They were ugly, Brutal things, all sharp angles and heavy armor, and massive weapons. They looked like they had been built for one purpose only: destruction. And they were winning. The Krath had 200 ships. These newcomers had 12. By every logical calculation, the Krath should have overwhelmed them in minutes. But logic did not apply here. The unknown ships moved with impossible aggression. They did not dodge or retreat. They charged directly into the Krath formation, weapons blazing. Missiles and energy beams tore through Krath vessels like paper. The newcomers took hits that should have destroyed them, but they kept fighting, kept pushing forward. "Who are they?" Liren whispered. Then a voice filled every communication channel on the planet. It was broadcast in the standard galactic language, but there was something different about it. Something hard. Something dangerous. "This is Admiral Kang Tae-ho of the United Earth Fleet. To the Krath swarm. You have 30 seconds to withdraw from this system. This is your only warning. This is your only warning. United Earth Fleet." Liren felt her body go cold. She knew that name. Every species in the galaxy knew that name. Humans. The humans had come. The Krath did not withdraw. They had never encountered humans before. They did not understand what they were facing. To them, 12 ships against 200 was a joke. They turned their entire fleet toward the human vessels, confident in their numbers. It was the last mistake they ever made. On the bridge of the UEF Indomitable, Admiral Tae-ho watched the Krath fleet approach. His face showed no fear. Around him, his crew worked with calm efficiency, calling out coordinates and damage reports. "They are not retreating, sir," said Commander Park Yuna. "I did not expect them to." Tae-ho turned to his tactical officer. "Jang Ki-young, status of landing forces? Captain Shin Dong-hyun reports all Marine units are ready for deployment. Dropships standing by. Tell him to launch as soon as we clear a path. Priority is civilian rescue. Find the survivors and protect them." "Yes, sir." Tae-ho looked at the tactical display. The Krath ships were swarming toward them, firing everything they had. His ships were taking damage. Shields were holding. But not forever. "All ships," he said into the fleet-wide channel. "Break formation. Attack pattern Delta. Show these insects what a death world breeds." The 12 human warships split apart like wolves separating from a pack. Each ship picked its targets and charged. They did not fight defensively. They did not try to minimize damage to themselves. They attacked with a ferocity that the Krath had never seen. The Krath were predators. They were used to prey running away, hiding, begging for mercy. They were not used to prey that ran toward them. They were not used to prey that fought back harder when wounded. They were not used to prey that seemed to enjoy the battle. In the first hour, the humans destroyed 60 Krath ships. They lost 2 of their own. But even those lost ships had taken dozens of enemies with them, fighting until the very last moment, ramming Krath vessels when their weapons failed. Below, on the surface of Elos 7, the first human dropships broke through the atmosphere. Captain Shin Dong-hyun led the assault. His dropship shook violently as it descended through smoke and fire. Around him sat his Marines, men and women in heavy armor, carrying weapons that could level buildings. They were calm. They had done this before. "Listen up," Dong-hyun shouted over the noise. "Our mission is civilian rescue. The Valari are fragile, so watch your strength. Krath forces are concentrated in the eastern zone. We hit them hard, we hit them fast, and we get those people out." Sergeant Baek So-young checked her rifle. "Rules of engagement? Captain? If it has more than 4 legs and tries to kill you, shoot it. Simple enough." The dropship landed hard. The doors opened. The Marines poured out into a world on fire. The Krath ground forces turned to face this new threat. They saw creatures that walked on 2 legs, wrapped in metal shells, carrying strange weapons. The Krath were large, each soldier the size of a ground vehicle, covered in armor like shells, and armed with claws that could cut through steel. They expected the small creatures to run. Private First Class Im Woo-jin raised his weapon and fired. The round punched through the Kroth soldier's shell and exploded inside. The alien fell. "Contact!" Woo-jin shouted. "Lots of contact." The Marines moved forward. They did not hesitate. They did not show fear. They fought the way humans had always fought. With determination. With fury. With the absolute refusal to quit. The Krath had conquered 100 worlds. They had never lost a battle. Until today. The battle for Elos 7 was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Lieutenant Commander Oh Eun-bi sat in the tactical center of the Indomitable, coordinating air support for the ground forces. Her screens showed dozens of feeds from cameras attached to marine helmets. She watched her people fight. And she felt proud. "Strike Team Alpha. You have heavy Krath concentration 200 meters ahead. Air support inbound." On the ground, Captain Shin Dong-hyun acknowledged the warning. "Copy that. Indomitable. We see them." 2 human attack craft screamed overhead. They fired missiles into the Krath position. The explosions sent alien bodies flying. Before the dust settled, the Marines were already moving forward, stepping over the dead. Dong-hyun had lost 3 soldiers in the first hour. 3 more were wounded. But they had pushed the Kroth back nearly 2 kilometers and located the first Valari shelter. "Sergeant Baek, take your squad and secure that entrance." "Corporal Yoon, you are on civilian extraction. Get those people out." Sergeant Baek So-young moved with her squad toward the shelter door. The entrance was blocked by rubble and by 5 Krath soldiers who had found it first. "Contact," she shouted. The Krath charged. They were fast. Faster than any Earth animal. Their many legs carrying them across the broken ground like nightmares made real. Their claws gleamed in the firelight. So-young did not retreat. She planted her feet and fired. Her rifle kicked against her shoulder. 1 Krath fell. Another. But the third reached her before she could aim again. Its claw slammed into her shoulder, cutting through her armor and into her flesh. Blood sprayed. Any Valari would have died instantly. Any Fennec would have collapsed from shock. Any Morath would have lost consciousness. So-young grabbed the claw with her free hand and twisted. The Krath screamed a high, awful sound. She pulled the claw out of her own shoulder, reversed it, and drove it into the alien's head. The Krath dropped. 2 more came at her. Her squad cut them down before they could reach her. "Sergeant." Private Im Woo-jin ran to her side. "Your shoulder. It is fine." So-young picked up her rifle with her good hand. Blood soaked her uniform. Her face was pale, but she was still standing. "Open that door. We have people to save." Corporal Yoon Ha-na watched this happen and felt the familiar surge of pride that came with being human. They were not the strongest species in the galaxy. They were not the smartest. But they were the most stubborn. They simply refused to die when they were supposed to. The shelter door opened. Inside, hundreds of Valari huddled in the darkness. They were terrified not just of the Krath, but of the creatures who had come to save them. Hana had been briefed on Valari physiology. They were fragile beyond belief. A firm human handshake could break their bones. A human sneeze could blow them across a room. She would have to be extremely careful. She removed her helmet so they could see her face. She smiled. "Hello," she said in the Galactic Common Language. "My name is Yoon Ha-na. I am here to help you. Please, do not be afraid." An elder Valari floated forward. Its light was dim with exhaustion and fear. "You are human?" "Yes." "Why did you come?" Hana thought about the question. It was a simple question, but the answer was not simple at all. Humans had crossed hundreds of light years, risked their lives, and fought a war against a superior enemy for people they had never met. "Because you needed help," she said finally. "And we could give it." The elder stared at her. It clearly did not understand. Hana realized that maybe it never would. The Valari had no concept of fighting for strangers. They had no concept of sacrifice for those outside their own kind. These ideas were alien to them in a way that humans would never truly be. But understanding was not required. "We need to move you to a safer location," Hana said. "Can your people walk?" "Some can. The children and elderly cannot. Then we will carry them." Hana turned to her squad. "Gentle hands, everyone. These people are fragile. If you hurt one of them, I will hurt you worse. That hurt, unhurt. That maybe." The evacuation began. Human soldiers carried Valari children in their arms like precious glass. They moved slowly, carefully, aware that their normal movements could accidentally kill the beings they were trying to save. Outside, the battle continued. Sergeant Choi Ye-rin had set up a field medical station in the ruins of a building. She was a combat medic, trained to save lives under fire. Today, she was saving lives she barely understood. A human soldier brought in a Valari child. The small creature was injured. A piece of metal had cut its membrane skin. For a human, it would have been a minor wound. For the Valari, it was life-threatening. Ye-rin worked with hands that had stitched human soldiers back together under artillery fire. Now those same hands moved with impossible gentleness, sealing the tiny wound with equipment designed for beings 10 times stronger. "You will be okay," she told the child. "I promise." The Valari child looked up at her with huge, liquid eyes. It could feel her emotions through its telepathic abilities. It felt her determination, her compassion, her fierce desire to protect. But underneath all of that, it also felt something else. It felt the predator. Humans were hunters. It was written in their DNA. In the forward-facing eyes that tracked movement. In the teeth designed to tear meat. In the muscles built for chasing prey across endless distances. They had evolved as persistent predators, creatures who would chase their prey for days until it collapsed from exhaustion. The Valari child should have been terrified. This human was a natural killer, a product of a world that produced nothing but killers. But the child was not afraid, because the predator was protecting it. Ambassador Liren arrived at the medical station an hour later. She had been evacuated from her shelter and brought here to coordinate with the human forces. She walked through the makeshift hospital, watching humans care for her people. She saw a human soldier, a giant of a man with scars on his face, carefully feeding water to an elderly Valari too weak to move. She saw another human, a woman with blood on her uniform, singing softly to a crying Valari child. She saw medics, soldiers, and officers all working together with a single purpose: saving lives. "You are not what I expected," she said to Ye-rin. The medic looked up from her work. She was tired. There were dark circles under her eyes. Her hands were stained with alien blood. "What did you expect? Monsters. Our records say humans are the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Violent, aggressive, unpredictable." Ye-rin laughed softly. "We are all of those things, but we are also this." She gestured at the hospital, at the soldiers helping the wounded. "We can be both." Liren did not understand. How could a species be both destroyer and protector? How could the same hands that killed also heal? But she was beginning to learn something that the rest of the galaxy had never understood. Humans were not simple creatures. They were not pure predators or pure protectors. They were everything, all at once, capable of terrible violence and incredible kindness. They could burn worlds or save them. It all depended on which side of them you saw. Today, the Valari were seeing the side that protected. The Krath were seeing the other side. And the Krath were losing. Admiral Kang Tae-ho stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and watched the Krath fleet burn. 3 days of battle had reduced the enemy from 200 ships to less than 50. The humans had lost 4 vessels in total. Every one of those ships had gone down fighting, taking Krath with them until the very end. Their crews had refused rescue, choosing to ram enemy ships rather than retreat. That was the human way. When you fought until you could not fight anymore. And sometimes, Even after that, Admiral, Commander Park Yuna, approached with a tablet in her hands. We have located the Krath Queen. She is on a command ship behind the planet's moon. Our scans show she is trying to call for reinforcements from other swarm fleets. Teho's eyes narrowed. If she summons more ships, we will be overwhelmed. Yes, sir. Recommendations? Teho considered his options. A surgical strike with missiles could destroy the command ship from a distance. It would be safe. It would be clean. It would be the logical choice. But logic was not the only consideration. We go in person, he said. Prepare Major No Seung-ho and his strike team for a boarding action. I want that queen dead, and I want her to see who killed her. Yuna hesitated. Sir, a boarding action against a Krath command ship is extremely dangerous. The Queen's Guard will be the Fan 1C. The Queen's Guard will be. I know what they will be, Commander. I also know what we are. He turned to face her. The Krath have terrorized this galaxy for centuries because no one ever stood up to them. Today we show them and everyone else that humans do not hide behind missiles. We look our enemies in the eye. Yuna nodded slowly. Understood, sir. Major No Seung-ho received his orders with something close to joy. He was a large man, heavily muscled, with the kind of face that scared children. He had spent 20 years as a special forces operator, and he had been waiting his whole life for a mission like this. Listen up, he told his team in the hangar bay. Our target is the Krath Queen. She is the brain of the entire swarm. We kill her, and the rest of them lose their connection to the hive mind. They will scatter and die. The strike team consisted of 12 soldiers. Each of them was the best the United Earth Fleet had to offer. Each of them had volunteered for this mission. Private First Class Im Woo-jin was the youngest. He was 22 years old, fresh from training, and he had already killed more Krath in 3 days than most soldiers killed in their entire careers. He checked his weapons and tried to control his breathing. Scared? Asked Sergeant Baek So-young. Her shoulder was wrapped in bandages, but she had refused to stay behind. A little, Woo-jin admitted. Good. Fear keeps you alive. Just do not let it control you. The assault shuttle launched from the Indomitable and accelerated toward the moon. The Krath command ship was massive, a twisted structure of organic material and metal, like a living thing that had learned to fly. It was surrounded by a dozen smaller ships, but the human fleet engaged them, creating a path for the shuttle. Impact in 30 seconds, the pilot shouted. Seung-ho grabbed a handhold. Hard breach. Everyone ready. The shuttle slammed into the side of the Krath ship. The impact would have killed any non-human crew. The strike team barely noticed. The hull crumpled, and the shuttle's front section became a tunnel directly into the enemy vessel. Go, go, go. The soldiers poured into the Krath ship. The air was thin and smelled wrong. But humans could survive worse. The corridors were made of something that looked like bone, covered in a sticky substance that pulled at their boots. The first Krath guards appeared within seconds. They were royal guards, larger than normal Krath, covered in extra armor plating, armed with natural weapons and energy guns. Seung-ho fired first. His rifle tore through the lead guard's chest. The team spread out and advanced, using the corridor walls as cover, fighting their way deeper into the ship. Contact left. 2 more coming from above. Grenade out. The battle was brutal and fast. Humans and Krath died in the narrow corridors, their blood mixing on the bone-like floor. But the strike team kept moving. They had a target, and nothing would stop them. So-young took a hit to her leg. She kept walking. A soldier named Park Jin-woo was killed when a Krath guard caught him from behind. His teammates avenged him immediately. But the loss hurt. Every loss hurt. Queen's chamber is ahead, Seung-ho shouted. Final push. The door to the Queen's chamber was massive and heavily reinforced. It did not matter. The team placed explosive charges and blew it open. Inside, the Krath Queen waited. She was enormous, the size of a small building, a grotesque combination of insect and nightmare. Her body pulsed with biological lights, Around her stood her final guards, the elite of the elite, each one capable of killing a dozen normal soldiers. But these were not normal soldiers. These were humans. "Spread out," Sung-Ho ordered. "Focus fire on the guards. I will take the queen." The battle became chaos. Humans against Krath, guns against claws, determination against numbers. The guards fell one by one, but they took soldiers with them. The team was reduced to 7, then 5, then 4. Wu Jin found himself alone near the queen's right side. He had lost his rifle. His pistol was empty. He had nothing left but a combat knife and his own 2 hands. The queen turned one of her massive eyes toward him. He felt her mind press against his, trying to find fear, trying to find weakness. She had broken countless species with that mental attack. But Wu Jin was human. He had grown up on a death world. He had been afraid every day of his life. Afraid of storms, afraid of predators, afraid of the 1,000 ways his planet could kill him. Fear was not new to him. Fear was an old friend. He smiled. "You picked the wrong planet to mess with," he said. He activated his emergency beacon. Seconds later, Sung-Ho and the remaining team members appeared beside him. They had killed the last of the guards. The queen screamed in rage and fear. Her massive claws swept toward them, but she was slow. Too slow for creatures evolved on a heavy gravity world. Too slow for predators who had hunted prey across endless plains. The humans scattered. They fired from all angles. Their weapons punched holes in the queen's armored hide. She thrashed and screamed, but she could not catch them. She could not stop them. Sung-Ho climbed her body like a mountain. He reached her head, where the main nerve cluster was located. He looked into her eyes, saw her fear, her confusion, her inability to understand how this had happened. "This is for everyone you have killed," he said. He drove his blade into her skull. The queen's scream echoed through the ship, through the psychic network that connected all Krath. Every Krath soldier on Elos 7, every Krath pilot in the remaining ships, felt her death. They felt their connection to the hive mind shatter. They felt themselves become alone for the first time in their existence. And then they fell. On the surface of Elos 7, the Valari watched in amazement as the Krath simply stopped fighting. The alien soldiers collapsed, twitching, their bodies shutting down without the Queen's guidance. The ships in orbit went dark and began to drift. It was over. In the Queen's chamber, Major Sung-Ho helped Wu Jin to his feet. They had lost 8 of their 12 team members. The survivors were all wounded, but they had won. "Good work, Private," Sung-Ho said. Wu Jin looked at the Queen's body, at the blood on his hands, at the destruction around him. "Is this what being human feels like, sir?" Sung-Ho nodded slowly. "It is. We protect the things that matter, and we make sure the things that threaten them never threaten them again." The strike team limped back to their shuttle and headed home. Behind them, the Krath swarm died. The sky over Elos 7 was clear for the first time in 2 weeks. The Krath ships had been destroyed or captured. The ground forces had died when the Queen fell. The fires were slowly being put out, and the survivors were emerging from their hiding places to see what remained of their world. It was not much. Nearly 7 million Valari had died. Cities that had taken centuries to build were now ash. The gardens, the farms, the temples, all gone. The colony would take generations to rebuild, but there were survivors. Nearly 5 million Valari had lived because the humans had come. 5 million people who should have died, who would have died, if the distress signal had not reached Sector 9. Ambassador Liren stood on a hill overlooking what had once been the capital city. Behind her, human ships landed and took off constantly, bringing supplies, medical equipment, and reconstruction materials. The United Earth Fleet had not left after the battle. They had stayed to help rebuild. She did not understand these creatures. A human approached her. She recognized him from the reports Admiral Kang Tae-ho. The commander of the fleet that had saved her people. He was old by human standards, his hair gray, his face lined with years of service. He moved slowly, carefully, aware that his normal walk could seem aggressive to a Valari. "Ambassador," he said, "may I join you?" "Of course, Admiral." He stood beside her, looking out at the ruined city. His face showed sadness, genuine sadness, for a world he had never seen before it burned. "I am sorry we could not save more," he said. Liren turned to look at him. "You saved 5 million of my people. The Galactic Accord refused to send even one ship. You sent 12. And you fought a war for strangers. I do not understand why." Teho was quiet for a long moment. How could he explain humanity to a species that had never known violence? How could he make her understand what it meant to evolve on a world that tried to kill you every day? "A long time ago," he said finally, "my people were much like the Krath. We fought each other constantly. We killed millions of our own kind. We built weapons that could destroy our entire planet. Your records say this. It is why most species fear you. They are right to fear us. We are dangerous. We always will be." He paused. "But we are also something else. We learned, over thousands of years, that the same strength that makes us dangerous can also protect. The same aggression that drives us to fight can drive us to defend. We chose to become guardians instead of conquerors. But why? Why help species who are not your own? Why risk your lives for people you have never met?" Teho looked at her. His eyes were old, tired, but there was something bright in them, something she had seen in all the humans. A fire that would not go out. "Because someone was scared," he said, "and we could make the fear stop. That is enough reason." Liren felt something shift inside her. She had spent her whole life believing that the galaxy was a cold place, that species only helped themselves, that kindness between strangers was impossible. The Galactic Accord had proven this when they refused her call. But the humans had proven something different. "Will you stay?" she asked. "After the rebuilding is done? For as long as you need us. Earth has authorized a permanent protection agreement with Elos 7. Any attack on your people will be treated as an attack on humanity. Why would your government agree to this?" "Because our people demanded it." Teho smiled slightly. When the news of this battle reached Earth, millions of humans volunteered to help. They sent donations, supplies, offers to come here and rebuild with their own hands. They did not know you. They had never seen a Valari, but they saw people who needed help, and they wanted to give it. Liren felt tears forming in her eyes. Valari did not cry the way humans did, but the emotion was the same. "Your people are strange, Admiral." "Yes, we are." Below the hill, a group of human soldiers was playing with Valari children. The soldiers were being incredibly careful, moving slowly, speaking softly, but the children were laughing, actually laughing, as they played a human game that involved throwing a soft ball back and forth. Sergeant Choi Ye-rin was among them. She had not slept in 3 days. She had treated hundreds of patients, both human and Valari. She was exhausted beyond words. But when a Valari child asked her to play, she smiled and said yes. Corporal Yoon Hana watched from nearby. She was writing a letter to her family back on Earth, trying to describe what she had seen and done. She wrote about the battle, about the fear, and the courage. But mostly she wrote about the Valari, about their beauty, their fragility, their gentle kindness. "They trust us now," she wrote. "They were terrified of us at first. They thought we were monsters. Maybe we are. But we are monsters who protect the weak and fight the darkness. I think that is the best kind of monster to be." Private First Class Im Woo-jin sat alone on a piece of rubble, looking at his hands. Those hands had killed dozens of Krath. Those hands had held dying friends. Those hands had also carried Valari children to safety and helped build shelters for the homeless. He was only 22 years old. He had seen more death in 2 weeks than most people saw in a lifetime. But he did not regret coming here. He did not regret any of it. A small Valari child floated up to him. It was the same child that Ye Rin had treated on the first day, the one with the cut membrane. "Thank you," the child said in broken human language. It had been learning. Wujin smiled. "You are welcome. Will you come back when you leave?" Wujin thought about the question. He thought about Earth, about his family, about the long journey home. Then he thought about this world, about these people, about the promise humanity had made. "Yes," he said, "we will always come back. Whenever you need us." The child reached out and touched his hand. Its fingers were cool and soft, like touching a flower petal. Wujin felt the child's emotions through its telepathic ability, gratitude, trust, and something that might have been love. He realized, in that moment, what it meant to be human. It was not about being strong. It was not about being dangerous. It was not about surviving a death world, or fighting wars, or building weapons. It was about this, about protecting the weak, about answering calls for help, about being the light in the darkness for those who could not protect themselves. Humanity had spent millions of years learning to survive. Now, they were learning something harder. They were learning to be worthy of their strength. The news of Elos 7 spread across the galaxy. The Galactic Accord held emergency meetings. The species who had refused to help watched the footage of human soldiers carrying Valari children, of human medics treating alien wounds, of human ships standing guard over a world that was not their own. They did not understand. They could not understand. But they began to realize something important. Humans were dangerous. This was true. But their danger was not random. It was not cruel. It was pointed like a sword, aimed at those who threatened the innocent. If you were a predator, if you hurt the weak, if you attacked the defenseless, then the humans would come for you. But if you were in trouble, if you were afraid, if you needed help, then the humans would come for you too. They would cross the galaxy to save strangers. They would fight impossible battles against overwhelming odds. They would give their lives for people they had never met. This was humanity. This was what a death world produced. Not just monsters. Not just warriors. Guardians. Admiral Tejo stood on the bridge of the Indomitable as it prepared to leave orbit. He looked down at Elos 7. At the world they had saved. At the people who would now live because humanity had answered the call. Commander Park Yuna stood beside him. The Galactic Accord has requested a formal meeting. They want to offer humanity a seat at their council table. Do they understand us now? No, sir. I do not think they ever will. Tejo nodded. That is acceptable. We do not need them to understand us. We just need them to know that we will be there when they need us. The ship turned toward home. Behind them, the Valari watched the human fleet disappear into the stars. They raised their lights in farewell, a gesture of gratitude that they hoped the humans could see. Somewhere out there, another species would face disaster. Another world would burn. Another distress signal would reach into the darkness, hoping for an answer. And the humans would come. They would always come, because that was what Guardians did.